Clayton's thing, right? He's just into it.
You know, Rich was lucky last year because we stayed up here, and he did a lot of fishing last year too, but he's happy to be on the Gulf and on the bay.
It doesn't make any difference where
You know,
No, probably
it's
not.
just a different beast
Yeah,
altogether.
it's
So
a
then you
small
gotta go
brain.
get the right rod. and the-
We're live a few minutes early, so just talk amongst yourselves, but be aware that we're
Okay.
strictly
Oh,
streaming.
okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
It shouldn't have, operator error.
Means I'm gonna have to try to sound intelligent. That's impossible. You know
I'm
that.
Mary.
I'm Alan.
Okay, Alan, you know, I've never met you in person. I've talked to
No.
you on the phone, and
Yeah.
I kind of thought that's who you were.
Oh no, that's scary.
I assumed that. Yeah.
Yeah, the voice is
Yeah.
pretty
Distinct.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
So you didn't go south this winter?
I did for a
Oh, did
couple
you?
weeks,
Oh, you
yeah,
did?
and then
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
go back down. 2 weeks and I get bored.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I've got things to do.
Yeah, all right.
well, Paul.
Gentlemen, how are you?
I was retired.
Yeah, here he is, back here again. I was giving a hard time.
Why, you retired, why are you back here? That's what I don't know.
Interested taxpayer. I wanna see how my tax dollars are at work here.
Or are you getting bored already?
No, I came to shop anyway, and I went, wow, there's a couple things that I might be interested in here today. I wrote were all road encroachments, I wouldn't be here, sorry.
I think there's only one.
Well, you've got floodplain on it. I bet that attracted your attention.
And the
Yeah.
South Fork Bridge
Yeah.
is of interest.
Yep. And I have to make an admission. It really was not POWs who built the bridge. It was German alien detainee, or internees, they call them.
Oh,
Like they were interned, kind of like the Japanese were
Right.
interned and whatnot.
Oh.
When the war broke out, they were here, and they were seamen, and they were in ships, but they were not really prisoners of war as such. They were internees and alien internees.
Okay.
So, and they were shipped first. And Nancy Thornton, of course, set me straight.
So, can you tell me where that bridge originally came from?
There's some information from Ray Mills. You remember Ray?
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
And he did some oral history of there, and he knew that it came from elsewhere. And far as we can tell, and I think Amy Zackerson's done some more research, in the 30s they built a lot of those bridges. You know, as part of WPA, CCC,
Right,
and the
right.
big steel bridges, because why would they use that much steel during the war? They didn't. It was built in the 30s, was someplace else, we don't know where, disassembled, brought here,
And
structurally
Put back
together, and
Okay.
then structurally set there. So and that's what the Germans did. And they lived there at the ranger station, and I remember Alice Gleason always told stories about feeding the folks, and then I remember some of the grandchildren who came back to visit in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
God, that's a long time ago, Mary.
Well, not so long ago. The 90s is just yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
Isn't that right, Paul?
I'm
So
just
Alan,
kidding.
what do you think? Could you just like move that bridge to maybe, let's see, Sailors? And take Sailor's Bridge and move it up there? What do you think?
There's lots of options, you never
Lots of
know.
options, well, I guess.
Just
I
keep
hope
putting
that,
zeros on the end of the number.
Yeah.
All the options you want.
Yeah.
Hi, Mayor. Nancy, I just corrected myself with them and said you said.
Oh, it's movable, there's no doubt about that. Pretty simple, really.
Well, yeah.
Couple cranes and a long truck. Because it's not, I don't think it's that heavy.
No.
Probably not. No, after looking
84
at
feet
it
long,
with you
approximately
today.
11 feet tall,
Can I get another chair?
and 16 foot
There's
wide.
one here, Nancy.
I don't want to sit at the table.
Is that one full?
There's one right there.
Yeah?
No, that's Mel's chair.
No, he's sitting right here.
Oh, wait a
sitting
minute.
up here.
All right, I'll take this.
Yeah, no one's using that one.
I didn't know Mel was.
Yeah, she wanted
Over there.
to be able to see the
Oh,
Zoom
yeah.
part.
Really?
I'm assuming the mayor will be here.
It's like, this has just been a long vacation. I wake up and go, oh no, it's not a vacation. I just changed lists when I retired, that's all. You know, they're still there. I get up and do whatever I damn well please.
You usually
Find
did
the
anyway.
absolute best chorus that I've created.
You guys were lucky to have Paul as long as you did.
No, I'll
He's
wait.
very
I
good.
might have a phone call coming.
Thanks.
before
You
I'm
did good
ready.
work.
Thank you.
Shut your ringers
And I'm glad
off,
you're
boys.
still in the weed round table.
Yep, ringers off, please.
I left mine in there.
Yeah, mine's up.
So Danny,
Yes.
did Mary Shirley get you yesterday or not?
Didn't hear anything.
Have your address.
I'll have everybody introduce themselves.
RTIS open when you,
Okay.
because that's what she wants.
Okay.
Official legitimate address.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why the census is still working away, but they are. I
Good
guess.
morning to you,
We're
Paula.
gonna clean stuff up for next time or something.
Right?
Where's she at Helena?
Great Falls.
Oh, I like that. Very clever.
She actually tries to drive out to some of these places to verify if somebody's like living there. You know, I can't tell if somebody's living there.
Nancy.
Yes, I have an
Yeah.
address.
Girl.
So Bob Stokes retired.
Yeah, he did.
Wow, really?
Yeah. He'd been kind of just filling in, I think.
He's been in there every time I've ever been in there.
Yeah.
And Debbie retired, so.
Yeah. I will miss seeing his cheery face and visiting with him.
Nancy, you have a new neighbor, don't you?
Yeah,
Sign in now.
he's a deputy sheriff.
Correct.
Oh,
You better watch it. Watch your
house
P's
did he
and Q's.
whose house did he buy?
Grab.
Oh, really? Oh, I guess I knew they were selling. In fact, I saw the sign.
I'm gonna
Interesting.
start the Zoom meeting.
Who bought Rev's place?
Deputy.
Deputy. I don't know which one, but I've seen the deputy ride there.
Nancy Jess, Nancy Jess, the new deputy.
Oh, we get a sign-in sheet? Holy moly.
Oh, I got it.
Quite a while.
He'd been trying to VRBO it and, yeah, it wasn't working very good.
He used to be involved in all
Oh, yeah.
Okay. They're telling me it's 10 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order, and we welcome everybody. First thing I'd like to have, go around the room and introduce yourself. We'll start with you, Terry.
Terry Barge, I live up on, off the South Fork, up on Arrowleaf. Retired. Maybe.
Nancy Thornton, homeowner.
We go that way?
Yep, Danny.
Sorry, I was messing with my computer. Dani Arps, the county planner and the grant administrator.
Alan Gagne, Teton County Road Superintendent.
Sam Carlson, Commissioner.
Paula Jaconetty, clerk and recorder.
Joe Dellwo, Commissioner.
Melody Martinson, Choteau, Acantha.
Dick Snellman, Commissioner.
Mary Sexton, longtime resident in South Fork.
Paul Wick, Teton County resident.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Hendoin is out in the hallway. He's expecting a
Chairman?
phone call.
Use your
Chairman,
pen,
I think
sir.
since they're,
You did retire.
on Zoom, that they should be counted as part of the,
Right.
so if you can have them introduce themselves.
Yep, Danny, could you get everybody on the Zoom to introduce themselves?
Can you guys hear us?
They have to
Yeah,
take
but
the
they don't know.
they have to do their-
I don't know if they can hear what we're doing.
We have 3 people.
Who's on the top left?
Recording in progress.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yep, can you guys hear us? Can you guys introduce
Yes.
yourselves, please, starting with Amy?
They didn't hear you.
What'd you say, Danny?
I was just wondering, Amy, can you introduce yourself?
Is it Amy? Can you
You're
introduce
muted,
yourself?
Amy.
What's her name, Danny?
Amy, we can't hear you.
Amy is.
It's gonna be a breakup delay, unfortunately.
Mary, do you know who Amy is?
Yeah, Amy Zackerson.
Okay.
Zach or something?
Yeah.
K-A-R-I-A-S-S-E-N.
S-S-E-N?
Mm-hmm. Amy, we still can't hear you.
And then Ross Mantion is down in the bottom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is Emily.
And the bottom right is who?
Emily Zackerson.
Okay.
It's not like you're-
So we have, oh, here comes Candy. So that's 4 people on the Zoom.
Candy Zion.
Yep.
That's Candy.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think we've got everybody. Hi, Candy. We've got everybody on the Zoom identified.
Ross and Susan.
I got Ross and Susan.
So I'm gonna go down through the agenda and we're gonna skip to the South Fork Bridge because we only have 30 minutes for the Zoom people to be on the meeting. So we're gonna take comment on the South Fork Bridge project. And I think we should start with the Zoom people first, so we'll be sure and get them. So.
Okay, should we start with Mary first, and then Mary, myself, Amy, and Emily? Something like that?
That's fine. I want to keep the comments fairly short, maybe 3 minutes, so we get everybody has a chance. So we'll start with Mary, that's fine.
I really don't have much to say. I just really want to thank you for having the meeting, and we're just interested also in the status. We know you've been talking to the Forest Service and to the Forest Highways Administration for a couple years, and we want to know what the status is. Maybe at the end if you want to talk about that and what your timeline is, and we just really appreciate you having this meeting, and so
Yep.
that's pretty much what I have to say. So if you could just at the end talk about the status, maybe you folks and
I will do
Alan,
that.
so we know where you are, what the timeline is, federal involvement, and so on and so forth.
Yep, I will be glad to do that. So let's go to the Zoom participants. Candy, you want to go next?
Yep, I'm gonna read it so I can be quick. I want to thank you also for the opportunity to speak. My name is Candy Zion. I own property in Teton County, and then I pay taxes there. I have a strong interest in preserving the South Fork of the Teton Mountain Bridge because of my lifelong connection to the area, and as an historian, I have a master's degree in historic preservation and 40 years of experience in preservation, cultural resource management, working with the private sector, various local, state, and tribal governments, as well as the federal government. I'm part of an informal group formed a few years ago and known as the Teton Canyon History Project that is interested in preserving the history of the canyons, and you can check us out on Facebook. We're interested in the preservation of this historically significant bridge, which is associated with World War II German internees, and prefer the option of rehabbing the structure and leaving it in place or in situ. You've already heard from Mary, who is a member, and we'll hear from members Emily and Amy, who also have extensive backgrounds in historic preservation. We've conducted research with this ongoing of the bridge, including an interview with Bud Bruno, who lived nearby and witnessed its reconstruction over the Teton by the Germans during the war. We also credit Nancy Thornton with her extensive bridge research and inclusion of the subject in her subsequent books and news artist publications. First, we are currently waiting on the 2019-2021 bridge inspection reports from the bridge's owner, Forest Service. So question 1, and if I'll just throw these questions out and maybe we can discuss them later, and I can send this to your email too. The latest report from 2013, which is accessible on bridgereports.com, indicates the last report of daily traffic at 16 in 1989. So 16 people crossing the bridge daily in 1989. Has there been a more current daily traffic report conducted to justify the public's need for a bridge replacement project of this size and cost? Secondly, the bridge report from 2013 assessed the bridge as in fair condition with a sufficiency rating of 64.7. According to the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials in July of 2008, a bridge sufficiency rating is calculated based 55% on structural evaluation, 30% on the obsolescence of its design, and 15% on its importance to the public. Sufficiency rating is considered by the federal government when federal bridge dollars are requested to improve the condition or replacement need of the bridge. If for bridge rates 80 to 100, funds are not available. 50 to 79, the bridge is eligible for cost to rehab and to refurbish. This bridge is previously rated at 64.7. That's according to the 2013. We don't know what it is now. But right now, what we have, it shows at 64.7. 0 to 49, the bridge is eligible for replacement costs. So my question number 2 is, if the most recent bridge inspection report indicates that the sufficiency rating of the bridge is still above 50, how does it qualify for replacement? Thank you for your time and consideration, and I can send this to your email too, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, who wants to go next? Amy? Yep.
Okay, if you can hear me, sorry if I'm gonna shout, I think my computer does not seem to want to have its mic work too well. Sorry. Good morning, and thank you for allowing us this time to address. My name is Amy Guthrie. My brother, Bill Newton, and my own property on W.
Excuse me, Amy, you're breaking up.
All right, I'll try to be slow. Our parents, Bud and Carol Guthrie, built the house on Bellevue Cross in 1975. We crossed what we call the German Bridge each time we left town or visit our neighbors north of the river. We grew up calling the Teton Bridge the German Bridge, clear reflection of this historical context. I'm a coastal research specialist and an advisor to National Trust for Historical Preservation. Because of my interest in the history of the bridge and because of my cultural background, and
She needs to be closer to the mic.
My family.
Amy, get closer to the mic. We still can't hear you. That's better, much better. Just stay there.
Right.
Don't move.
Okay, I'll stay there. I'm sorry.
She's reading.
If she's reading, she should just email
Can she
it.
email it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we still can't hear you, Amy. Could you email your comments to us?
Yes, I will. I'm sorry.
Okay, if you do that, we'll get it into the record.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
all right. So, how about Emily?
Well, sorry, Amy. I know that you had some questions to ask, so maybe you can text me or something and I can ask them. But Commissioners, my name is Emily Sackerson, and my family, as my mother was saying, has property near the bridge. And I've always been fond of the bridge, fascinated by its history. I suppose since I was a little girl, and Ripley Hugo told me that she and her brother George learned how to speak German, count to 10, from the men working on that bridge. And I was inspired by many other people by the history of the Teton Canyon, and actually that's what spurred me to pursue a master's degree in historic preservation. And following that, I worked for 7 years documenting and evaluating historic cultural resources for compliance with federal regulations in Montana and the Dakotas. And so I've consulted on a lot of historic bridges, actually, providing management recommendations and offering creative solutions to minimize or mitigate loss or damage to historic structures. And so I know that the proposed bridge project is going to need to comply with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. And that regulation is the one that requires federal agencies to identify significant cultural sites in a project area and then consider potential impacts that their project's going to have to those. And this project's going to have to identify ways in which they can avoid, minimize, or mitigate adverse effect to historic properties, including the bridge. And from my understanding, it appears as though there are several state and federal agencies involved in the decision-making. Forest Service owns the bridge. Federal Highways is the project proponent, and they'll be the ones that are responsible for complying with that regulation. And then there's also the State Historic Preservation Office, who will have to review the plans. And I just kind of wanted to take an opportunity to state that the Section 106 process is an inclusive process, and it will provide opportunities for public comment and consultation with stakeholders. But it's going to be up to the federal agencies to identify those stakeholders and initiate consultation. So my ask today of the county is I just want to encourage the county to make an effort to keep the public informed about opportunities to engage in that process. I think it's really important that the county, or at least any concerned residents, make it known to the agencies that local history is something that the community cares about, and that this bridge is part of a story that has statewide significance and public interest. The Teton Canyon History Project, which I am also involved in, has already expressed an interest in being one of those consulting stakeholders. And the Historic Bridge Foundation, which is a national group, has shared with us some really great examples of similar projects. So I'm really looking forward to participating in future discussions and development of preservation solutions that may exist to streamline that regulatory process and move ahead with the best possible outcome for all of those involved. And I know we haven't gotten to that step yet, but it's coming. And so I just wanted to, again, urge the county to keep the public informed about opportunities for public input as they arise. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, who do we have left? Ryan? Ross.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. I believe I've learned more just from listening to this conference call than I could have imagined. I'm not sure where we are in the process, so I'm really just absorbing whatever is out there. I'll make this brief, and that is, I'm a retired federal employee. My last 11 or so years, I worked for the Federal Highway Administration, and I'm familiar with 106 and the National Historic Preservation Act in conjunction with NEPA. And again, as it relates to this particular project right now, I'm just happy for the opportunity to be involved. And in the future, I'm really concerned about the more so with the documentation and recordation of the historic elements, the narrative associated with the history of the bridge, possible photo recordation, public display panels, whatever kind of mitigation, if it gets to that point, that would be required for the project. That's my big interest in this. I really want to preserve and hold on to the history of the bridge, and as the bridge relates to the area, and also thinking ahead to context-sensitive design, context-sensitive solutions, if indeed there is a bridge replacement. If there is no bridge replacement and there's only reconstruction or renovation, that's done in accordance with the requirements to maintain the bridge's integrity, the historic integrity. I'm really not well versed in this particular project, so as I said to start, I'm really learning more than I actually have to offer at this point. But I find it interesting. I'd like to hold on to whatever kind of historic aspects the bridge and the construction of the bridge has, and I'm concerned about, I shouldn't say concerned, I'm also interested in environmental impact, should there be any, regardless of what happens. But I'm sure that'll all be taken care of as we go further on down the process. And that's it. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you, Ross. So that's everybody on the Zoom. Nancy?
I wrote a very interesting story about the bridge some time ago, and I did distribute it to Joe Dellwo and Mary and Candy and Melody, just based on I'm what you would call an amateur historian, but I've been president of historic societies. I did the work to put this building on the National Register of Historic Places. So I'm very versed in historic research and all of that. I learned just in the past week, and I'll be writing about in my old news column, the fact that there was the original Ear Mountain Bridge, South Fork Bridge, was built in 1927. Cost about $80,000 in today's dollars, $5,000 at the time. And it was damaged in '43, and then the bridge you see today was built in '44. The county worked with the Forest Service then. It got a new right-of-way, and as you're familiar with the area there, the braided stream area and all that, you could easily get another right-of-way and maintain the integrity of the bridge that is there. It doesn't have to be destroyed, replaced, I guess it would be a better word. And I learned also this week that the Forest Service plans on turning the Ear Mountain Guard Station up the South Fork into a one of those rental cabins, you know, for tourists and stuff. So there is a lot of interest in the Métis culture that's up the South Fork Canyon. There's going to be more tourists than ever using that road that are from all walks of life, I guess is what I'm saying. But in fact, there should be a very strong consideration to leave the infrastructure that is historic in place. We have so few buildings, structures that have not been adequately researched to the point where we could use them as draws for public information and education. And this certainly adds to the culture of our county, as a few other things that are left. We've lost elevators to burning. We have lost homes to renovation. Some of our original log homes and all of that, which are no longer on the landscape. And I believe that having the bridge stay in place while you build a new one with a new right-of-way is doable. But we shall see, I understand that, but I am an advocate for historic infrastructure to stay in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Terry?
My background from an engineering standpoint is electrical, but I do have a good friend of mine who is a geomorphographic engineer, and also I spent some considerable amount of time with Karen Boyd, who did the geomorphographic analysis for the irrigators in last year. And I appreciate the historical aspect of the bridge, but I'm addressing it right now from the standpoint of the utility of the bridge as it is and safety of the bridge. And sure, we can replace the deck, the truss design of that bridge, it'll last, probably a direct hit with a bomb. But in any event, the amount of alluvial material that's coming down from higher up stream is what's constantly changing the channel and always threatens the approaches on that bridge when we get a flood condition. And my friend had sent me some FHA information about scouring at bridges. And if you look at the data, that's the #1 cause of failures of bridges in the United States, is scouring. Now, I know there's a document that came, and I only have 2 pages of this, where you've got an estimate here, I think this was in 2021, of doing some work on the bridge and evaluation and that. And scouring is one of the items there, and it seems to be a little bit open-ended as far as what the depth of that would be. But certainly with my discussions and everything that I've read, I think on an inspection, that would be one of the #1 things to look at, because visually you can look at a bridge and look around the abutments, or if there are piers in the bridge, and say, oh, there's no holes there. And that's basically what scouring is, there's a hole around support structure. But that may just be material that came down from upstream and is pretty much loosely packed in there. there's nothing firm there that was originally put in or built upon when the bridge was first built back in the 40s. That's 75 years ago. And I'd like to know, how much detailed records is still available back from 1944? Is there anything that, is accessible where you could at least establish a baseline and say, here's the elevation of the bridge, this is the elevation of the piers when they were first put in. And then at least whoever does the analysis of the bridge, along with checking for scours, could say, oh, this is the compaction of the material that the abutments were built on. This material here is not the original material. This has been scoured out and filled in over the years by other material that came down and just took the place of the void. So I'm not sure where the county is with this, but I guess, Joe, you could probably answer my question there. Are we looking to go ahead with the analysis there and determine everything what's going on with the bridge right now?
The Department of Transportation does our bridge inspections.
Okay.
County has not handled that for, I don't know how many years. They were doing it when I got here, so at least 18 years.
Okay.
So other than what they tell us on our bridge inspections, I don't have any information from the county unless we really dug back through the records.
Were you?
It's my understanding it's a Forest Service bridge, so they do the inspections. The county, the MDOT does not do it.
Okay.
On that bridge.
Yeah, because we looked, we asked, and the state has nothing, and we're trying to get through Freedom of Information Act, the Forest Service inspections.
Yes, I know it's not done at the county level.
Isn't that true?
Well, no, it wasn't done from the county.
Yes, that's true, Mary.
Okay.
Did the county get a copy of this?
Yeah, we have that. We have that.
We have a copy of that. Okay. So, and I've got all the FHA documentation on my computer as far as scours at bridges and what it can do to the bridge. And I can certainly share this with the commissioners if they have any interest in reading it. I mean,
we dealt with that a lot during the last two high water events. So, I mean, that's what takes bridges out.
Right. And if anybody wants a copy here, I mean, I'd be more than happy to send it to them.
I'd like one, Terry.
Would you like
Yeah.
one? Okay, great. It's lengthy, like any federal government is,
Yeah.
but it's an eye-opener, really is, so.
And you have copies of the report that the Conservation District did, and I think that's the one that Karen worked on
Yeah.
when they did the
study.
hydrogeology of the river, and it showed for the bridge, which is their, one of their high priorities, how with culverts you can mitigate a lot of the river issues with the existing bridge. And there's some. You've seen that, Terry?
Well, in my discussion with Karen, she sent me some additional photos, but they had a similar project on the Bitterroot, somewhere south of Missoula. I don't know exactly where, but that's what they did. They put in culverts, but we're talking about culverts large enough to drive a car through. So
Bitterroot's a much different river too.
yeah. So we go from probably a $2 million project to about a $20 million project to do something like that.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's by Stevensville, somewhere down
yeah,
there.
okay.
It's really
We've seen
wide,
pictures
really
of that.
shallow.
Right. Well, that's what the Teton is, right? How wide and shallow
Yeah.
up by us, yeah. So,
Okay, thanks, Terry. Paul, are you going to comment on the bridge?
I do have two comments, and so my two concerns would be from what I gleaned from what Candy provided is I don't think the county should work off of really old data to make a decision. I think that's bad. That's just a bad starting point. You need a better starting point.
Exactly.
I'm sure that the use has changed since 1989. There's no question in my mind. And I think everybody agrees with that. So maybe we're asking a question that we kind of already know the answer to, but I think knowing that bridge gets a different amount of use than it did. And then really the last true evaluation of that bridge was 2013. Even that I think is old data that we should be working on more current information.
Forest Service does have that 2021 report that they are sending us, but because of the Freedom of Information Act, it's going to take a while for us to get the documents. So that's why I don't have it, but I wanted to provide you at least something that we have an old baseline, you know, to kind of give you an idea of what that report was from before. So yeah, until we find that out, you're right. We don't have current information, but we have a little anyway. And I agree with you on that old 1989 assessment of traffic. That probably should be something that be done again. And talking with the road supervisor, he said you do have a traffic counting apparatus that maybe you could determine what the traffic is now. Is that correct, Joe?
We do have that. Yeah. Yep. So we can do that.
Well, and just last point on that is that we'd have to talk our way through, you know, that's almost really a 12-month thing.
Right.
Because any one month is going to be different than the next month. It's going to change pretty dramatically, so. That's it.
Any other comments on the South Fork Bridge?
Amy has one. She put in the chat. You can read it up there.
I can't read it from here.
She says my basic questions are justification of the project, identification of cost and funding sources, traffic count, and cost-benefit analysis of renovation and new construction with demolition. Open and honest assessment of the project is something that taxpayers need to ask for.
Okay, I'll give you my perspective on this project. When we did the repaving of the Teton River Road, we were meeting with FLAP. That was another FLAP project, and the bridge on the South Fork is narrow. It's a one-lane bridge. So we talked to them about that. So they started the ball rolling. That was in 2016. So they've done some analysis on it. They brought us 4 options. They had a flood-proof, 500-year flood-proof bridge that was 500 feet long, and that would be $10 million. And the county has a 13.8% match.
13.42.
13.42. Their other option was a new bridge, an 80-foot bridge, and that was going to be a $3 million project. They also went through and to renovate the existing bridge. It would still be a one-lane bridge. That would also be $3 million to go through it, bring it up. They'd completely redo it has lead paint on it. They'd have to repaint it, sandblast it. They'd have to, because of the lead paint, they would have to have quite a few environmental. I mean, it was going to be more than just painting the bridge. And then our other option is to do nothing. And I don't think that the bridge is unsafe at this point, but it's 75 years old, and we have a real hard time to get a snowplow through there. They've got to almost stop and crawl through there to get the snowplow through there now, and our equipment is getting bigger, so it just seemed like it would be a good time to at least look at it. So we have the 4 options that we are looking at, and it is complicated because the Forest Service owns the bridge, so we've been working with. We had a conference call with Curtis Jorgensen, and I forget the Forest Service's.
Gagne Woods.
Yeah, that's the name. And we've just been bouncing around what would be the best option for the county. In the meantime, we were contacted by Candy, and thank you for that, Candy, because if it's a historic bridge, that changes everything. And these are obviously federal dollars. So they've got to do everything correctly. They can't cut any corners and just rip the bridge out and say, well, too bad. They've got to go through their whole process. And the Forest Service has to go through their process. So it's not going to be a quick thing. But we do have those four options in front of us at some time. But really the reasoning for the new bridge was the single lane, and it was just the opportunity to get a new bridge there that we wouldn't have to worry about for probably 50 or 60 years. So that's basically all that I have. And the Forest Service has been adamant in these meetings that if we do anything, and they have been forthcoming, they would help us with the match on the projects, but their main stipulation is at the end of the project, if we do anything, that Teton County owns the bridge going forward. So.
So Joe, how much match did they say? Is that with the rehab of the bridge, or is that mean replacement cost?
I don't think the Forest Service is really, they would do either option 2 or 3, which are the $3 million options. They would help us with the match on that. And I think that they would give us 50% of the match.
So they would help with the rehab, 50%?
If we were willing to take the bridge, and I'm not sure that I'm willing to take a 75-year-old bridge, even if it's rehab.
But not at 50% is what she said.
No, they had a dollar amount. I think they went up to $200,000, and they would agree to do $50,000 worth of in-kind work, which would be the historical assessment and other things that they could do. They had the people on hand that they could use for that. So they've been willing to work with us, and they've been very upfront that their goal is that they would spend this money with the understanding that they no longer own the bridge. So that's basically where we're at.
Is that excuse me, Joe, is that the 2.7 million that's on this sheet here?
Yeah, and that has gone up. The last phone call we had, they said you better use $3 million.
Well, yeah, I noticed in their little projection, it's up
construction
from 25, so,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's option 4.
Right.
There's option 1, 2, and 3 that they did initially, and then they added option 4 later
Right.
on, and that's the
Right.
one you're looking at. Here's 1, 2, and 3,
Mhm.
which, as Joe said, one was the 87-foot single-span bridge, and that one was about $3 million, and then doing nothing, and then a much fancier bridge at about $12 million. And then the 4th one is the rehab that you have.
So is this document part of the situation where the county would own the bridge after this was done?
Either way.
If the Forest Service helps with any match, that's gonna be their stipulation, is they do not want to own the bridge.
Okay.
That's their justification for helping us with the match.
There is one more option. You could pave Bellevue Road.
How many million would that be?
And then just leave the bridge out and have it as a pedestrian bridge or something. I would imagine when we did the Teton River Road, it was a $18 million project.
Yeah.
So I think that would be an option, but I don't think it would be a viable option for the county. And the flap deal, they already have put $18 million in that Teton River Road, so I'm not sure that they would be willing to.
Which
go
will be
into a big
needing another
project.
paving job.
We're working as we speak on the chip seal part
Chip seal
of it. We're gonna try to get that done this summer, but whenever
It's a
you're working
process.
with a federal agency, it's slow.
So Joe or Alan, when you say $18 million for the Teton Canyon Road, that wasn't county dollars.
No,
That's
federal.
the project.
And that was when we did that, there was no match for flat projects. There was no match, the county didn't, and since we accomplished that, they have changed their criteria, and they feel that if you're gonna have skin in the game, you need to put up the 13.4%. So when we did the Teton River Road, that was an $18 million project without any match, which is a lot handier.
Ironically, that grant for that was written when we were in office. Sam, you remember that? It was about
There's
2001, 2002. They didn't really get around because it's a list, it's a Forest Highways program. And they had a
The
list.
only reason we got it done when we did was they had another project west of the mountains
Yeah.
that involved paving a gravel road, and because of the grizzly bear, that was gonna be held up. They didn't know how long, so they called us up and said, would it be okay if we bumped your project up?
And bumping
So
up
we
was
did that.
10 years later.
Right,
Because
yeah.
the initial cost was about 10 million. And then between 2000 and 2010, when they initiated the project, it went up quite a
another
bit.
$8
But
million.
yeah.
Yeah, and these bridge projects will be the same
Yeah,
situation, I'm sure.
like the cost of what we see now, 5 years down the road, that cost is gonna be more.
Of
There's no
course.
question.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
We gotta look at that too.
Right.
We're gonna run out of time on the Zoom meeting.
I just have, what is the county's process? Obviously, the feds have their process. You will participate as appropriate, but what is your process moving forward?
As far as making decisions on what we're going to do, well, we'll keep gathering information from the flap people, and they are aware of this historic aspect to this bridge. And the last call that we had with Curtis, he seemed kind of like he wasn't sure how to proceed because of the historic deal.
It was, when I talked to Curtis last, the question was, do we want to proceed with this because of the historical thing and the time it's gonna take? Or do we just mothball it? And my answer was, I had to talk to the commissioners, but to keep going with their assessments and all the stuff they need to do with the Historical Society and figure out where we're at. We've went this far, we don't want to stop now.
No.
At least that's my feeling.
As we move forward, though, in making these decisions, there will be public involvement.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because there seemed to me that some decisions were made, and I think some of your emails suggested that decisions had been made as to what the county's position was. But there's still a lot more information
Right.
to gather,
Right.
and I would hope that as you move forward in your process, that there would be public input and public meetings so the public knows.
Yeah.
Because
It will be
it's-
done, it will be done in this
Yeah.
room.
Okay, thank you, thank you, much appreciated.
We're not gonna do anything, and I really believe that we couldn't do anything because of the federal aspect of it. I mean,
But you still have your own process. You're still involved, and you have been for 2 years, and even longer. So as you move forward and gaining more information and deciding what your position is, hopefully that's done in the public arena.
And there's a lot of good resources for the people that are involved too. I mean, they've all
Yep.
got a good background as far as
Oh,
knowledge
yeah.
on this
Oh,
type
yeah.
of thing.
as far as making any decision on any of these 4 options, Mary, that will be done in a public
Okay.
meeting.
Right.
And Candy's been emailing Alan, and we've encouraged everybody to stay in the loop if they wish to, and we'll continue to do that. We're not gonna do anything in the dark of night. It's not gonna happen. So I will make that commitment to you, Mary.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, much
Well,
appreciated.
and with it being a Forest Service bridge, you couldn't if you wanted to.
And it's a federal project, and they can't do it anyway, so.
But you have a process as well. You're an important
The county will
player.
be transparent in this process. I will make that commitment to you.
As we move forward, some of this information wasn't here, Mary, so it's all come forward now. And I understand, and so, yes, we'd like to get it changed, but we need to work through the whole process to get there. And like
And it's
Joe
gonna
said,
be-
there's nothing gonna be done in the dark. It's all gonna be out in the public.
To caution you on that though, and you well understand, it's gonna be a long, drawn-out process.
Well, I understand,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
But that it's being done and moving forward is positive, and I thank you for, your participation, continued participation, because it is an important structure for commerce, for history, for road maintenance. It's important.
Well, and at some point, and it might be, that bridge was built extremely well, it might be 40 years from now, but at some point, if the county had to replace that bridge, it would be cost prohibitive. And
Yeah.
There would have to be some sort of federal money injected into it, because we've got other bridges in the area that we can't afford to rebuild those either, because $1 million bridge 5 years ago is now a $2 or $3 million bridge, and I mean it's going to just keep climbing, and the county doesn't have the revenue to.
Oh, I understand that, yeah.
It's no different than it was when you were commissioner, Mary. It's just the numbers are a lot bigger. So any other?
Can I ask? Oh,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask one quick question about the planning. Is this on the long-range plan, on the state transportation improvement plan? And if so, what dollars were allocated, since funding will be an issue, whether it's now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. But there is money set aside, and it is identified on the long-term plan, or we're not there yet.
Well, this isn't a STIP project. It's going to be a FLAP project. So that's
Excuse me,
federal.
what kind?
This is a federal lands access program project. So it's not
Okay.
associated with the STIP program. It's a
Okay.
program that the federal government does to continue to provide quality access to federal lands. So it's a different program, but
Okay.
their funding is always, you know, they have to get everything in place, they have to have all the engineering, and then they try to get the funding for the project, so that's not a guarantee on this deal either. 'Cause we're not at that point.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I guess my only comment, if I understand correctly then, is if for some reason we lost the bridge, at that point in time, it would probably be the Forest Service walking away from it and becomes just a county problem.
That bridge survived the '64 flood, so.
Oh, I'm
if
just
that
thinking,
happens,
I'm revolving back to this,
things to do.
Scours issue where the bridge looks great from, you know, the naked eye,
Yeah.
but what's going on behind the abutments, you don't know.
I
And
guess to answer your question, without federal dollars, we couldn't afford to replace the bridge.
yeah,
We couldn't even afford to rehab the bridge, so. But if, you know, it would just depend on what was happening at the time. If it was a huge flood event, maybe there'd be a lot of federal dollars.
that's exactly what I'm
So-
thinking. Yeah.
So I can't give you anything other than a hypothetical on that,
Okay.
Terry. Any further questions?
Thanks
Okay.
very much.
Well, I
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
And
And
thanks everyone there.
whatever we do on this going forward will be done openly,
Oh, yeah.
so. If there's no further questions, we'll get back to the rest of the meeting. You are all welcome to stay if you want, or if you don't want to, you can skip out.
Okay, then.
Get out the paper. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you on the Zoom too.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
I
Yeah,
don't think anybody's angry right now, so might as well stay.
I think Chris was waiting on
I
hall
sent him a text.
because there
There was
was a
some
bunch of
outside
noise. We could hardly hear.
Yeah.
We should probably have the door open though, seeing how it's a
Open meeting.
open public meeting.
Well, it's not locked.
There's not a secret password to it.
No, right.
I don't know where Chris is. I sent him a text. We'll see.
Give me your email address.
Danny, can you send me Amy's questions?
Yeah.
Because you just took a picture, I saw.
Well, Melody did. This is recorded, so.
Oh, yeah, but if you can just, yeah. Oh, Melody, can you send it to me? I couldn't write fast enough.
No, me either.
You might as well come in and sit down, you're not getting any taller. Okay, so we have minutes from January 6th meeting.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We have a road encroachment request from Lee Dahlman. It's on 13th Road Northeast. And it says a culvert is not needed. And it's just an access approach to a field.
To a field in his grain bins.
Yep,
No.
Alan signed it.
Alan has signed it.
I move that we accept the
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That brings us to the Choteau planning / floodplain. And I guess, what day did you request my presence at the?
Oh, I don't know. I had for dinner last night. I can't remember when I asked you to stop by.
A few weeks ago, I got a text from Chris and he asked me to stop by the city office and I did. And we were talking about and I'm glad that Paul showed up too. We have had in the past a floodplain services contract with Choteau. And basically when we rolled Dani into the position, this kind of, I'm sure Paul had talked to me about it and it skipped my memory. We'll go with that. But we need to have, and I've talked to Dani too, we need to have a way to work together on this. And it sounds like Mike is willing to do the footwork and also on the addressing.
Yes.
That was Mike's big question at that meeting. And I will say at that meeting, Mel, I decided and Chris concurred that we needed to have this done at a public meeting. So we are trainable.
Yes, we are.
So they gave me a copy of the contract, and it says that we have to get out of the contract, we have to give a written deal in 90 days, but the mayor and company said that you would not worry about that, but what we needed to do is we need to sit down and get a plan going forward where we still can accomplish what we need to accomplish together.
Correct.
Is my understanding.
And we have no issue doing our own floodplaning work in conjunction with Gagne and that. We would like a letter though, that so we can put in the file that says we're out of the contract. And for the floodplain thing, that was our only concern.
Yep.
From the planning side of the house, we're curious if it's a true pass-through to the county, where it doesn't cost the county anything for the planning, if the city could continue to operate that way. Because I know it can't only affect the city of Choteau, it's got to affect the town of Dutton and the town of Fairfield as well, because I'm sure you guys are doing the planning for them as well. So that's what we would like to see continues. If there's planning that needs to be done, you guys have a contract with an engineer's firm, and the engineer's firm does the billing and it's a pass-through, correct? Whereas you're not making, the county makes nothing out of it, the charges are all.
You're talking about planning fees?
Yes.
So the planning fee schedule that was just adopted by the commissioners is basically it puts the cost of planning fees on the developer or the
Yes.
landowner. That money isn't increased for the county to make any money
Nope,
off of
I know,
it, and
we
it
knew that.
pays the fees to Staley Engineering.
And that's what we would like to do, is just have the same kind of thing, same
So
kind of
you guys will
pass-through.
probably need a contract with Staley for planning. Or we need to figure out what portion of planning done in the city is done by Staley, I guess.
Why?
Well, what exactly are you talking about? Have you had?
We have had no conversations, no
Have you guys had
discussions.
people come
I'm
to
being
the city?
proactive here. And I'm,
That's
you
why
know,
we're here today.
Yeah.
I want to know, I don't want to wait till somebody comes to us and say, we want to do this, and then I have to figure out how to reinvent the wheel. And in the past, the county's done our planning. We just want to continue to do that.
What does the updated growth policy say about it?
That we would continue under the current plan with the county, provided that there's been no change, and unless we were asked at some point in time to put together our own. And we would turn around, we would probably, since we're under contract to Great West, we would go to Great West. But if the county's not making anything off of it, and the city ultimately falls within the county, we just thought it'd be easier.
It's a different situation than with Dutton or Fairfield because they don't currently have growth policies in place. They don't have, so they're just falling under the purview of the county at this point.
I thought the city of town of Fairfield had a growth policy.
They do not. They're looking at developing one.
Yeah, I see, because they called and asked for a copy of ours.
Yeah,
So,
they're
so Paul, could you elaborate and tell me how it worked while you were here in the old days?
I can't remember what I had for dinner yesterday.
For breakfast this morning.
So,
I had Pop-Tarts.
the other moving piece to all of this is that we've always had a joint city-county planning board. So then I never made the distinction of, oh, this one's in the city limits. It's the city's thing to deal with. So yes, we were providing, and I think regardless of how this all goes, unless you decide, oh, the city needs to have their own planning board as well, separate. It is going to get a little stickier from the standpoint of how to charge, because the county is paying Staley. So yes, it's a more or less a pass-through, but the county is paying Staley, and then getting basically reimbursed from the developer is the way that works. So then why should the county be paying the city's portion of it as well? And I think that's why Danny's saying, well, the city could contract with Staley themselves.
And we're under contract to another engineer firm, so.
Or you could just use them.
Then we have dueling engineers, we go, we're redundant. And is there not a way that, okay, so this is my bill from the county from my planning fees, and it pays the county, it gets paid to the county, and then the county issues a warrant to Staley, correct?
Yes.
So could the bill not come to the city of Choteau? We issue a warrant to the Teton County for the planning fees for this, and then it goes back out
We
the
could do
door
an
that way?
amendment to the contract with Staley that includes services for the city of Choteau.
What's that?
We could do an amendment to the contract with Staley that would include services for the city of Choteau,
Okay.
which wouldn't really increase anything. It would just separate out what in city limits. So what he's doing is he's looking at our county subdivision regulations and making sure things fit within those subdivision regulations before they get filed.
And our growth policy says we follow the subdivision regulations of
Right,
the
and
county.
we're going to redo, or not redo, but we're going to update our subdivision regulations this year. So we could address it in the subdivision regulations, or we could have an amendment to the contract with Staley that would include work separate, like outside of city limits of Choteau is one thing, and inside city limits.
Yeah, we're worried just about what's inside the city limits of
Yeah.
Choteau. And to be honest with you, I don't know truly what there is. I mean, most everything in the city limits of Choteau has been developed, plotted at some point in time.
Yeah.
Chairman, may I speak?
Yes.
Thank you. So I have a concern is it's worked well with the way it has been done, whether Paul did it for the city, for the county. My concern is now the clerk and recorder ends up with all of this. And I mean, to me, my suggestion would be to talk to Staley to say, hey, can we just incorporate the city also? Because I still need, it's still gonna have to come, and now you're working with two different
Government entities.
everything,
Yep.
and it's for the best of Teton County, and the city's part of the county, and
Yep.
I mean, it's worked well the way it has
Yep.
been, and it's a pass-through for the funding, and
Yeah.
that way Dani always gets the funding, she puts it into that account, and maybe that's something later on in a year or a couple of years when you look and say, hey, wow, Choteau has a lot of these, you know, maybe you guys really should look at doing something.
We just don't want to have to go put together our own planning board
Yeah, no.
and
So Paul, we have this contract's in effect. So what kind of workload did it?
Now, that's entirely, that contract.
Well, this is the
that's just floodplain, yeah.
So what kind of workload did you have with the planning part of it?
So just a couple things on the planning. One is I would suggest exploring that with Dan Staley and saying, it's probably not the first time this has come up.
No, I'm sure it isn't.
And see what he may at least talk through. But here's yet another complication and I'm thinking of the last review that was done was an annexation. So that even complicates things more. It's like, well, it's county because it's not annexed into the city yet. So when does the true subdivision take place? Does it take place before you annex it into the city, or does it happen after you've already annexed it? So I'm just saying there's some things that you're going to have to talk about and talk through. Again, I think Staley's a pretty good resource to say, how are you doing this with others? So, and that's why I felt fairly good about doing some of these things with the city, even though the city technically wasn't paying my way. I saw that the city and county has to be able to work together on these things. They just have to. I mean, that's the way it should be. I mean, so.
Well, then it keeps everything straight.
Yeah. And I think our biggest concern, like Paul said, is from my standpoint at City Hall is going to be annexation. That's got, I mean,
right.
We can grow no more without, more land. Because if I'm not mistaken, everything within the city is plotted, laid out.
I mean, there were very few true subdivisions happening inside the city limits.
Yeah.
I mean, that isn't what was happening. It would be, we want to subdivide this, and in order to do it, we need the city services, so we want to annex into the city limits. So the county was going to be involved regardless because it initially is county property.
So was this the only question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Simple as it is.
So I guess I would.
Well, we also have the floodplain issue. It's the only planning question.
Yeah.
But in reality, the planning if you're already fully developed in the city, the annexations are gonna be the only situations where there's gonna be anything for Danny to, or Staley to do.
It's not quite that, and Chris has got a better handle on it than I do. Would there be some other little pockets here and there? There are some that may get further divided because somebody wants to make more money, you know? So that might come up. I think they're gonna be pretty few and far between, however.
Yes.
My suggestion would be to table this till the next meeting on the planning side, till we get the opportunity to talk to Staley. And then
That's fine.
We're just having a discussion on it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, we're not making it.
So we just want to find a way to maintain the status quo best we possibly can. And like I say, Paul's got a better idea. You know, most of the stuff that's done within the city limits anymore is going to be done under a boundary line readjustment rather than having to go through a whole new subdivision breakdown.
Right.
Like, my concern is annexation at some point in time and how we're going to, you know, and like I said, it starts in the county property and eventually it'll end up into our laps if they decide to annex in.
Well, and maybe just to clarify, at least my memory says the last piece that proposed all that was not divided until, in other words, the city had the final say on, oh, we will accept this into the city limits and as however many lots they wanted to create and provide the services. Well, when it got to that point, it kind of fell apart and didn't happen. But I would say the majority of ground is going to come into the city and then get subdivided.
I think that's what it says in the growth policy also. The annexation happens and then the subdivision happens.
Which then puts it under city, and it should. It definitely needs to, because the city is saying, oh, and we're going to provide all the city services to this new subdivision. It's not right for the county to say, oh, yeah, we're okay with this subdivision, but city, you provide all the services to it, and we're saying it's okay. So, yeah, there's...
And the last one that wanted to annex in did not like what we asked of them in order to annex in. So they chose not to. And I would say going forward, our list of what's going to be required to annex in on our subdivisions are going to be things that have been neglected in the past. You're going to have curbs and gutters. You're going to have a stormwater plan. You're going to have 80-foot right-of-ways at a minimum. You're going to have alleyways and things like that. So.
Well, and I think the biggest thing, Chris, is that historically, properties have been able to annex in and then pick and choose what services they wanted to pay for. I don't believe that's what you're going to be doing anymore. It's like, no, you're in the city limits, you're going to pay for the city services.
And we have homes outside the city limits right now that have city services that we're going to have to address at some point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Was that addressed in your growth policy?
Yeah, and it's just because it's been a big deal and that's how it was done, and so that's just continued that way.
Right.
There would never be an opportunity for somebody to annex in and just to get our sewer systems. If you're going to get on our sewer systems, you're going to get on our water systems.
Pay for garbage. There's no reason why they shouldn't pay like everybody else in the city.
So does the city do we approach Staley then?
I think we should. We already have a contract with them. You might as well.
And you contract with another engineer?
We do. We contract with Great West.
What exactly are the parameters of your contract with them?
I would have to go back and look, but I believe for all engineering services, we're required to. And then they would do a change order to add that to it like they did with their growth policy.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and talk to Staley and see if that's a doable thing. But if you're already contracted with Great West, you think that will...
I don't know. I'll reach out to Colette and ask.
You'll have to ask some questions.
They say to.
Yeah.
So we'll do a little more research and we'll visit this again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on the floodplain stuff, are you okay?
So as far as the floodplain goes, I have some thoughts on that. I'm learning a lot of stuff right now, considerable amounts for some permitting that I'm doing outside of city limits. That there's a lot of resources out there, and I'd like to invite Mike to the trainings so that he can learn while I'm learning. And because with the remapping of the flood zone, it's really going to affect the city of Choteau a lot more.
We are well aware of that, and part of this conversation bodes because of that. You know, floodplains,
There's a lot of new data
yeah.
to have these engineering firms look at when they're making their plans for things. And I think with not just the road projects, but bridges and things like that, it's important that we have a lot of, open discussion about what you guys, your growth policy addressed the floodplain a little bit, and our growth policy is going to address the floodplain also because it is changing. But I think it's important that Mike, he can be the floodplain administrator for the city of Choteau. It's an easy thing to do, just to learn about the permitting process. So I'd like to share with him all the resources I've got.
Please do.
And
feel free.
He's got, he uses the same GIS program I do. Yeah. So we had talked about maybe sharing some layers that so he wants to do addressing, as far as addressing goes in the city limits. He just needs to get me the address and the parcel information and the owner information, and I'll let everyone know about it. Okay. And I'll do all the notifications and everything.
And that's how it's been in the past, I thought, wasn't it, Paul, inside city limits, or did you assign them?
Run that by me again.
When we put an address on a piece of property within the city limits, did you assign that address or did the city?
So it was always in conjunction. In other words, I didn't just give somebody an address and not talk to the city.
No, I knew that, yeah. But
so I would call Tom and say, this needs a new address. This is what I think it should be. And generally he just goes, yep, that works.
And that's what they'd say.
And I just worked with Tom doing some addressing downtown for a building with apartments upstairs. Yeah, one building had one address and there's 3 businesses and 4 apartments in it. So Tom did all the footwork and walked around and sent me pictures and we determined where the addresses should be and what they should be. And then I shared that with the city, and then I also shared that with all the utilities and the Department of Revenue and everybody that needed to know those addresses. And moving forward, I'd like to continue to do that.
Yeah, that's what we...
If Mike or Tom just wants to shoot me an address, I'll plug it into the system and notify everybody.
That would be easier for us than having to...
That takes like 2 minutes.
And I would, say that Choteau's done very good with that communication, and they've got a pretty good understanding that if I don't participate with Dani, our information's not going to be in the 911 database.
Yeah, that was one of Mike's questions the other day.
Yes.
Yeah.
I upload that address information into a program that the dispatchers retrieve it from.
Yeah. No, we have no heartburn with that whatsoever. We just want to make sure continuity again.
Yep, just so we know what each party is supposed to be doing.
How much floodplain work had you done for the city before retirement hit you?
Too much.
More than $500 worth?
Too much. So I don't know, but and all it takes is like one kind of complex one for everything to kind of slow down and come to a screeching halt and that kind of thing. So it's not this huge sheer volume, but when one is complicated, it's like, okay, this is just going to take some time and back and forth.
And it seemed like the other day when I was at the city, Mike was willing to bite into that.
Oh yeah.
And why I think that's really good that Mike would jump into that is that I could go to all your meetings and go floodplain, floodplain, floodplain. It's critical to the growth of Choteau. But when it's somebody on your own staff going, floodplain's going to be really important on where we can grow and where we can.
Mike's got such a comprehensive idea of where high water events happen within the city limits, and he's recorded all of that data every time there's a high water event. He's got a better handle on the floodplain in the city of Choteau than anybody. So it makes sense for him to do the permitting.
And Mike might not be jaded just yet.
Not yet.
But it's coming at some point.
On the
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so we're going to send you a letter.
Mr. Chairman, all we want is just a letter so we can close our file and then let us know. I'll reach out to Great West, find out, but the continuity of things is what we're trying to maintain.
We'll make sure that's in the letter too, because we agree.
Yeah, by the time we get through this, if we have an engineer, you have an engineer, and they have dueling engineers, and somebody doesn't agree with another engineer's thing, it could get spendy.
We probably need a motion on breaking up the contract.
I will ask for a motion. Do I have a motion to
Sorry, I just didn't want it to slide by.
stop the floodplain services contract between Teton County and the city of Choteau?
I would so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. But with the caveat that we will continue to work well together.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about
We're all
it.
serving the same people.
No doubt about
I
it.
want that to happen.
And Chris, will you follow up to give them a
Yes, I'll-
written letter that says we
Yes,
requested?
I will do that. I had one, but Jody said don't bring it. Might be presumptuous. I'll get one.
Just for the record.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
And we're trying to do that. We're housekeeping at a rapid fashion over there, trying to get caught up on stuff. Yeah. To be honest, we got a phone call the other day. We found where the county vacated a plot of land that's within the city limits, and we can't find where the city ever did it. And it's before you guys, wasn't that back in 1919? But nonetheless.
Let me see. Yeah, that was before.
I found it in the archives where the county addressed it, but it's only addressed not one time, and we went through all where the resolution was, where it created it, but it's never been decommissioned on our part, or vacated on our part.
Yeah, that stuff happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this isn't on floodplain, but one more thing, when you talk to Staley, I think it's really important to talk to him about the fact that you're operating with a joint city-county board.
Yep.
And you're trying to make that all still work without having to go, oh, we need to throw this all out and start all over again.
It's difficult finding board members, you know that.
Oh, man.
There's no sense having two boards. It makes
Yeah.
absolutely no sense
No.
in my mind.
So. Thank you, guys. I'll get out of your hair and you can wrap up.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm glad the previous group ground you down to where I could,
You're easier to work.
We're really trouble right now.
Yeah. See you guys.
See ya.
Okay, that brings us to the floodplain permit fee. Resolution 2022-12 establishes that fee, and the proposed fee is for $200. Paula got a bunch of information from other counties, and it varies anywhere from $50 to $450, so I figure that's probably...
The purpose of the floodplain permit fee is to cover costs for notification, for public notices and landowner notification. And it was recommended by the DNRC.
Okay. So do I have a motion on the resolution?
I would move to adopt that resolution.
Second.
Any further discussion? No comment, Paul?
I was going to be
come on.
the devil's advocate. You want me to be the devil's advocate?
Absolutely.
Okay, so one thing that I thought about is the fact that you're trying to get people to participate in this floodplain program. And when I say people, it's landowners with property within the floodplain. You're trying to get them to understand it. Is a fee an additional? They're already going to pay some engineering costs. They're going to. There's no talent, maybe they got to put in an entirely different septic system, which is going to be a huge cost. So are we looking to just add more stuff and say, you know what, this is not worth the dollars, and then they don't put something in the floodplain? Or is it truly just to recover costs? I'm just saying that, adding an additional fee, it's almost like saying, let's increase taxes on these people. You're passing that cost on. And I guess I'm just saying, if I owned property in the floodplain, I'm already going to pay an engineer at a minimum to come up with a base flood elevation of my lowest floor. And then maybe I got to go to Austin and say, oh, I need this specialized septic system, and then I got to pay the county whatever their fee is. I'm just plain devil's advocate, so there you go.
So my perspective on that would be the $200 is covering the county's costs. If we don't charge that to the people that are using the services, then the existing taxpayers
Then
pay it
everybody pays
anyway.
for
So I'm thinking it's a tax break for the existing taxpayers.
Is everybody already paying for those, though?
The services
Yeah,
through
If we're doing notifications and
Danny's
stuff.
wages and time. Yes.
exactly.
Yes, so we can either look at it through your lens as a tax increase or mine as
I'm
a
just
tax
saying.
decrease.
Yeah, I'm just throwing the other one out there,
No,
so.
thank you for that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Commission reports.
We've gone through everything.
Yeah,
Had on
we've
my
been
mind
busy.
this morning, so.
Public comment.
Not this time.
I have no public notices, so our next meeting will be February 17th.
Yeah.
Thank everybody for coming and participating.
Interesting meeting.
Adjourned?
They all are. Have you
We're
watched them?
adjourned.